Welcome to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast. And you're very welcome back to this week's Hawkeye Sidekick Hurling podcast with your host Mark Kennedy. Joined again this week by Ruairi, Walsh and Kieran Collins. Lads, how are things?
Very good, Mark.
Yourself?
Sure, great now. All good. I suppose we'll focus on the Allianz Hurling League, lads. Round 4 in the books last weekend. We'll also look at round 5 scheduled for this weekend, St. Patrick's weekend, and also maybe we'll have a quick preview of the Croke Cup final between Kieran's College and St. Raphael's Loughrea in Croke Park. Guys, maybe we start with 1A in round 4 last weekend. Walsh Park, Southeast Derby between Waterford and Wexford. Kieran, you're at the game. I suppose get your thoughts on the 223-123 win for Wexford.
Yeah, I suppose, Mark, it was nearly a game of two halves, really, because Waterford, I think, definitely started stronger, and that first quarter they were really impressive, and they got into a 5 or 6 point lead at one stage, and Wexford looked at sea. To be honest, they were just miles off the pace of it, and they weren't pushed up. They weren't marking. Waterford seemed to just get through them with ease, and I think that there was a couple of stages in the first half where I think Waterford probably should be more ahead at half time, like going in 3 points up at half time. That probably should have been 6 or 7 points. If it to be a fair reflection of, I think, how Waterford dominated. I think Wexford they found it hard to get their scores in the first half. And I suppose, in truth, they were lucky to only be 3 points down. I suppose there was a couple of, the goal, Seamus Casey goal chance there. That was, I know Seamus Casey well, and if you give him that ball 100 times more, he'd stick it every time. He's really, he's that type of player. Like, if he gets in that situation, like, he's deadly accurate. But I suppose it shows the pressure these guys are under. But I think that was a definitely missed opportunity. But I suppose late in the second half, Wexford probably rang off a few scores, and I suppose going in at half time, I would have been fairly happy with the 3 point gap. There wasn't much of a win there, a little bit of a breeze, not too much of a factor. But definitely in that second half, then the game just changed. Wexford, I think, took full control. It was like a complete change in Waterford, like the way they were playing. I think Wexford just got out in front. They played the balls. They played, I suppose, they played in a way that, I suppose, troubled Waterford. Into the corners deep, I suppose, and Keen Byrne and Seamus Casey getting the scores from that. Keen Byrne is only a young guy. Scoring 5 points from play. Richie Lawler, again, another young guy, and I thought he caused Conor Ryan all sorts of trouble there. He caught 3 or 4 balls off him in the first half. Probably a surprise that he was still on him at that stage of the game. And I suppose Seamus Casey as well. But the three, I would call them small guys of a full forward line, but I think they really dominated and they did their jobs. Look, for Waterford, I suppose, I think Jamie Barron was really impressive throughout. I think Callum Lyons as well, carrying on his form from the last day as well. I thought he was really good. Mikey Kiley was a real target man, especially in the first half. And you could see he was probably, he was their target up there for long puckouts. Really dangerous in the air. And, when he takes on these runs, your heart in your chest because, he just runs direct to goal. So he's a hard man to handle. But look, I suppose from Wexford, they'll be really happy with the second half. I think the 3 point victory at the end probably isn't a good reflection of what it should. I think Wexford should have won that game by probably 7, 8, 9 points because, that goal that was gifted to Padraig Fitzgerald, I think you take that out, that was completely against the run of play. But look, to go down there to Walsh Park, both teams are fighting for 1A hurling next year, so it wasn't like it was a dead rubber. There was a lot to play for, and for me, like, obviously it's a very good result for Wexford, and I suppose it secured 1A hurling for next year, which I think with 1 game to go, it's easier to take their hand off at the start of the year, and I suppose already it's been a very successful league campaign for Wexford in that regard. But I think for Waterford, like, where do they go? We keep hearing Davey saying about all the players that are missing, but these players are starting to come back in. Padraig Fitzgerald came on, I thought he was really good. Desmond Hutchinson got nearly a half of hurling. Callum Lyons, Jamie Barron back in. Is he kind of running out of excuses with the player front? And I think now he's kicking it off to, don't mind the league, we'll worry about championship now. And he's trying to buy himself a little bit more time with that narrative. But, just for me, like, at the end of the game, there was only 2 points in it the last 5 minutes. And to me, to win a game, you push up, put your forwards deep inside. Waterford didn't. It's like the they pulled back more and tried to make the middle third more of a war zone. But there was one stage Callum Lyons took a shot at goal. His only option was to take a shot, probably from his own 65, because there was no players inside to play a ball into. So from that regard, probably questionable tactics from Waterford. I just think Waterford are in all sorts of trouble this year. Davy can dress it up all he likes about certain players. I know Tiger Burke, Iarla Daly, Conor Prunty to come back in. Will they make that much of a change? Tiger Burke will. I think it's just outdated tactics, and you have to score to win. And when you're pulling your players so deep into your own half and congesting that middle area, I think we saw similar tactics in Wexford and how it ended for him down there. I just don't know how he expects to turn this around before championship, really.
Yeah, Rory, get you in there. I suppose get your thoughts on that Wexford victory.
So yeah, Mark, I think Keith Rossiter will probably be the happiest manager of all the teams in the league, because he was coming into a Wexford team that maybe were up and down last year and wasn't quite sure, how they'd face up against some of the, even like let's say the big teams of Munster, and they're 4 rounds through now, unbeaten. And make no mistake about it, Waterford were really targeting this game. You can see from their demeanour, the way they started the game. There was a real kind of fire about Waterford at the start, and you could tell they really wanted to win this game and maybe finish the league winning this one and the last round, going into Munster Championship on some bit of momentum. But Wexford were really good for their win. We spoke before about hanging in there when you're under the cosh, and Wexford did that in the first half. They didn't concede a goal when Waterford were going through their good spell. And I get what Kieran was saying, that at half time maybe Waterford should be a bit more ahead, and the reason they weren't was they let Hearn run the length of the pitch straight through the middle, untouched. And we're talking about Waterford pulling players back and in one way packing the defence so they don't concede goals. But like this, what's the point doing that if a player can come straight through the middle? And look, it was a great goal for Wexford, and a really timely goal, because it instantly cut down a lot of Waterford's good play and a lot of the effort Waterford had gone to build up that lead. And in the second half, Wexford upped the gear, and I just thought Waterford were struggling pace-wise to keep with them, especially in the back line. Look, this could be a harsh criticism because, watching on TV, Kieran, you were there in person, but the Waterford backs looked to me like, so few of them looked like they'd overdone the S&C. They looked like rugby players, just like in terms of movement and pace, and they were just 2 yards behind the Wexford forwards, chasing shadows really in a way. Wexford just had the legs in them. Keane Byrne, very impressive, for a young lad coming in, and I'm sure Keith Rossiter is delighted that now he's some of these guys, due to injuries and unavailability of players, they've got plenty of game time and they're really settling in now to senior hurling. Dublin, suppose, going through a difficult spell. Wexford have to be thinking now they have to bring this form all the way through and guarantee themselves, top 3 in Leinster, because it would be a shame if they don't, because they've really, seemed to have upped it since last year. And with more players to come back, that could be another factor. How do you kind of bring back, if they all come back at once, could be a slight thing, and how do you blood them back in? Because certain guys would be feeling they've done enough to hold on to a jersey based on their league performances so far. So it might be a difficult one to negotiate, but it's a nicer problem to have than maybe what Waterford have, because Waterford Davy seems to be praying that Prunty and Tiger Burke and all these lads come back and just kind of boost the team, because what he's seen in front of him isn't good enough at the minute, especially in the back line. And Tiger Burke pre, his latest injury, obviously would strengthen it, but you just don't know. He's got no game time really in league, and he's going to be coming in cold, having not played for over a year. We all wish he's back to the very best before he got another unfortunate cruciate injury. Iarla Daly as well has been out for a while, and you're just from a Davy point of view, he's hoping these boys can hit the ground running, because they're going to have to.
Yeah, absolutely. Kieran, get you back in here in terms of, I think Rory alluded to it there. I think Keith Rossiter has had a magnificent kind of league campaign. As I know at the start of the podcast series, you were kind of wondering in terms of the Wexford, the new players or the squad players really impressed. But look, we've mentioned Casey, we've mentioned Byrne, mentioned O'Donoghue, mentioned an awful lot of these guys have really taken their opportunity this year. And I suppose Keith Rossiter has a nice headache on his hands to maybe kind of decide who's going to be starting, particularly in the first round of the championship.
Yeah, and I think in a short time they've probably earned trust as well, because they haven't held back on playing these guys week in, week out. And I suppose it's what they're giving back to is like this never lie down attitude. Like a couple of games, I think they go back to the Kilkenny game where Kilkenny got a goal, Wexford came straight back at them. Kilkenny got a second goal, and they come back again to get the draw. And probably the same against Clare. To a lesser extent, like Clare were probably the better team in the second half, and to hold on to get a draw was a good result and I suppose a fighting attitude to get the result. And I think similar to Waterford, like I think maybe Wexford teams of old, with the start Waterford got on them, they may just lay down and let them give them the beating they were going to give them. And I just like the fight that's in them. From 1 to 15, there's no player you'd single out and I suppose it's a lot of people, and myself included, over the last couple of years would have questioned strength and depth in the Wexford panel, but there is a few, I suppose, senior players to come back in. I don't think they're automatic starters. I think these guys have to work harder to get these jerseys back. Like Conor Foley probably has been the foreign player for Wexford in the 4 rounds of the league. Now maybe he might change position, but Liam Ryan has to force his way back in to get that jersey back, because like the way Conor Foley's been playing, it would be an injustice to him to take the jersey off him. So I suppose look, it's a good headache in one way to have people or players fighting for jerseys, but I think they've earned trust. I suppose they haven't let him down yet. They fight, they tackle, I suppose the work rate to bring, they are fit. I think that's one thing above. I think they were probably a lot fitter than Waterford on the day. And they can see out to 70 minutes, and that's probably a big part of it. But, there is big players come back in. But, to be fair to Kieran, he hasn't used that. Like, and I think above anything, like, similar to some teams, like, there has been a lot of players from the start of the league that haven't been available, like players that you would consider main names of Wexford that haven't been available. But not once has he used it as an excuse. I think a lot of teams have been waiting on players to return to fitness. So I think for Davy to jump from this excuse about players to now pushing it on to, wait till he sees in championship kind of thing, I think he's just kicking the can down the road. And, I think every team manager could make excuses regarding players this time of year. Like, he's not using it to the advantage of seeing more players and getting more game time into players. And it must be disheartening for, I suppose, the 6 backs that took to the field last weekend that, every time Davy's interviewed, all he keeps mentioning is Conor Prunty, Tyke the Burkhead. I suppose they know their fate already, basically, before they even come back.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, Kieran, and there could be an opportunity where he has to use those players again in championship. Let's say the boys don't make it, and suddenly they're saying, well, I've been more or less, classified as second rate, and now I'm being thrown out in Munster Championship, marking whoever, Tony Kelly or Patrick Horgan or somebody. So yeah, like it's a weird approach to go, and just looking at my own county, Clare, and they've had tons of injuries. I've never heard Lohan. You just, in a way, you use it as a positive, and same with roster below. You use it as a positive. You get through as many players as you can. You learn a lot about players, and gives them an opportunity as well. We mentioned before how a lad who maybe doesn't have a great game one day, that they put him out again the next day, and you can see a difference. Like when a guy knows he's still going to get a second chance, it takes a lot of the pressure off, and you get to see the best of them rather than feeling they're under pressure and they might only get one opportunity to, put their hand up. And I think it's how managers use it. For Waterford to kind of keep bandying it about every time they lose a game, I don't know if that's good for the squad.
Yeah, no, completely agree. I suppose Ruairi get closing remarks here on this fixture. I think the significance of the result for Waterford is probably going to be more apparent next season down in Division 1B. No disrespect to Antrim, Carlow, Lee Shoffley and another team, but again, the top echelons will be in 1A, and then I suppose whoever is going to be in charge of Walsh next season and squad, 1B is probably not where you need to be if you're going to be fighting for championship honours next year.
No, definitely not. And in terms of even revenue, I know it's a small thing, but home games, although they had a very poor home crowd the last day, and even just listen to the sound of the crowd, it sounded like there was as many Wexford there as home fans. The Waterford public haven't really bought into this team, and I couldn't believe last year their home fixture versus Clare in Thurles last year, they were maybe outnumbered 5-1 in terms of support. And whatever about Davy in that, I do think that the hurling public in Waterford do need to go out. Like, the players are putting in a savage effort despite everything they might feel about maybe management and direction, and they do deserve the support of their fans. But to go down to 1B, it's hard to get, on a cold February Saturday or Sunday, hard to get your average GA fan maybe to go in and watch some of the games against teams that Waterford would be expecting to, win by 20, 25 points, against, and that's no disrespect, but that's kind of the way it is with the gap. So, yeah, it was very important, I thought, for Waterford that they, put up a big effort to try and stay in Division 1A for next year, and it hasn't really happened for them.
I suppose we can move on quickly here. I mean, Tullamore here, Kieran, and I suppose the reason why Waterford's fate was sealed was given the results of the Cork Offaly game. And I mean, I think, Ruairi, you mentioned it last week, you'd kind of feared for Offaly a little bit. But Kieran, I suppose, 5-28 to 16 points. Cork winning. Connolly prominent with 3-1. Declan Dalton back in with 7 points. I suppose for Pat Ryan, he got to try out some new players, and it was a nice afternoon for all involved.
Yeah, I suppose looking at Offaly, it's probably the worst performance they've put in of the four. Only scored 5 points in play in the whole game, which I suppose it shows how dour or bad they were. Cork, ran at them. Offaly just didn't get up in their faces. They didn't, they stood back. If you do that to this Cork team, they'll run at you all day, and they did. I think, Alan Connolly was really impressive, scoring 3-1. And he's probably the one Cork forward who is probably a little bit different to the rest of the Cork forwards in that he's the type of player you can play a high ball into and you'd expect him to win it and score from. I think 2 of the 3 goals definitely were opportunist goals, and he probably worked hard on the ground to win the ball and stick it past the keeper. So he's a player we were looking at 2 years ago and we're talking about. I suppose he missed a lot of last year with injury, but I thought it was really impressive. Now, okay, he's going to face stiffer tests with full backs, but I suppose on the day when he played what's in front of you, and I thought it was really, really impressive. Another player was Rob Downey. I thought he was really good wing back, probably a force there. Won lots of puck outs and loving to get forward, scored 2 or 3 points as well. I suppose Cork have played so many players in the league, and you could probably make a case for any of them to start any game. But I suppose the question mark is who will play when it comes the first round of the championship. And I think it won't be a team that's too dissimilar to the team that took to the field last year. I think when the push comes to shove, all these young players have got time, and a lot of these players have impressed as well. I think Brian Hayes has impressed in the games he's played. Sean Toomey's impressed me. Kieran Joyce, who's been around now probably 2 or 3 years, I thought he's really got better and better this year. Real dominating centre back, he wins dirty ball. Very good in the air. I think he's just a complete package for me. But I still think come championship, Lehan will play. Possibly Luke Mead will play, Harnedy, Hoggy. Talk about all these young players. No point talking about them if you're not going to use them. And I suppose in a way it's a headache when you have so many players at your disposal who to play. But for me, I think the way things are going, it will be a team that will be very similar to last year. Look, just I suppose with Offaly really disappointed to the zero intensity. I'm wondering their 2 best performances to date were away from home. I'm wondering, is there a bit of pressure from the Offaly public when they played home, because they played at home to Waterford, they were very poor as well that day. I suppose a lot of some of these are younger guys, and the Offaly supporters aren't shy and and cheering what they want. They want to get back to the top table, and I wonder, are these is the panel and feeling a bit of pressure that I suppose this year that they have to win Joe McDonagh to get back up. And I'm wondering, is that just playing at home? I just question that the 2 best performances were away from home. Is that a big factor?
Yeah, Rory, get you in there. I suppose, look, from an Offaly perspective, it's a disappointing result. 6 points from play really tells the tale of the tape here, but they have Clare coming to Tullamore in round 5, and I suppose it's a chance to probably redeem themselves after last weekend's performance.
It is, and they're going to have to pick it up because we feared this might happen. Just comparing themselves on Westmeath, whereas Westmeath were finishing their division with after putting up some good performances with games against Antrim and Dublin, where we knew they could be very competitive, maybe get 2 wins and go into the Joe McDonagh Cup, with momentum. Whereas Offaly were finishing off with Cork and Clare, which was going to be a tall order, but you were hoping they'd be at least back up the performance they had down in Nolan Park, especially the first half performance. But this was, this was their poorest performance so far. No Offaly player scored more than a point from play, which I think they had 5 points from play from five different players, but nobody was able to score 2 points from play. And the Cork forwards just seemed to run right. Alan Connolly, took his goals well. He bullied Ben Keneally for a couple of them, and as Kieran said, like himself and Declan Dalton add a bit more, that they're not your typical kind of Cork forward in terms of like they have a lot of pacey forwards, very similar to each other. Declan Dalton, the half forward line, and Connolly in the full forward line do offer them a different dimension and are ball winners really. And you can work off with your more pace, can work off the ball winners like. And I think something Cork were maybe missing over the last 10 years, just having the target men and yeah, it's going to be interesting going into championship. I still worry about their full back line. Like Robert Downey definitely is better wing back than in full back line, and yeah, Damien Cahalane has been exposed a couple of times at full back. They still haven't really, for me, nailed down a top number 3. Like a lot of the other teams have a settled full back, and yeah, it's one position maybe that Cork could, either Damien Cahalane, really he's an experienced player, puts in a good season with him, or I wonder is Pat Ryan still looking for another number 3. But yeah, I think there isn't going to be much difference between the team that lined out last year, let's say against Limerick in the last round, and the team that will go out in the first round. And Offaly, as you were saying, get Clare coming into town. Just one of the lads was saying here, Johnny Kelly, in an interview mentioned that he's now going to give runs to the under-20s in the last round against Clare. A lot of the younger guys, panel players, I can see maybe he's thinking rest up some of the fella. It's going to be a long McDonagh Cup campaign, and maybe that's his thinking. I don't know, or keep squad guys happy. Maybe he's saying that so Lohan might do something similar, and then Offaly go out strong. Maybe it's a double bluff. I don't know. But you just, again, kind of worry there. I know Clare have some lads coming back from injury, some big players. Will Lohan see as an opportunity to let them get a run out before league semi-final? I just heard lads saying that David McInerney, Kelly and a few were doing sprints the last day beforehand, before the game up in the Cusack Park. So they must be close, very close to coming back to pitch time. So you just wonder if these boys are all unleashed against an Offaly team, low in confidence and maybe trying out guys who haven't had much time in the league. You wonder are Offaly going to face, another heavy defeat going in. But sometimes these games can be funny though, when you make 7 or 8 changes. They can take a life of their own and they don't really follow the pattern of the previous games. So you just want from an Offaly point of view that they do put up a big performance in their last match at home. Because another defeat like this, it's going to affect confidence going into Joe McDonagh.
I mean, even for Cork as well, I know you mentioned full-back, but I think the goalkeeper situation might be intriguing as well, particularly with Saunderson. I think he's a big prospect down in Cork, and Pat Ryan does rate him, and you have Collins there as well, so there might be indecision there, 1 and 3 particularly. But I mean, for Cork, all the doom and gloom in the first 2 rounds, they have an outside chance of maybe securing a semi-final in 1A, but we'll go to reviews later on. I suppose to conclude 1A here, Ruairi, Cusack Park, Ennis, Clare facing Kilkenny, and I mean David Stewart absolutely superb from start to finish. 19-16 win for Clare, first win over Kilkenny since 2021. I suppose nice win for Brian Lohan and the management and players.
It was a nice win in terms of it had to be dug out at the end. Big attendance as well. There was about 7,000 people there, which Kilkenny will always bring out the fans anyway. But yeah, and it was a strange one. Like Kilkenny really shot themselves in the foot here with Wise in the second half. They missed chance after chance there when they were on top. And interesting enough, like the only player that scored from play in second half was Donnelly, who came off the bench. So none of their other 5 forwards in second half scored from play. Now I know that there was plenty of frees in that time, but still you expect more from the likes of Owen Cody, who was really quiet. Adrian Mullen as well, quiet. And it's just something that Paddy Deegan second half as well. He was good in the first half, but went completely out of it. You're just thinking from a Kilkenny point of view, and it's something we wondered about. If you keep Owen Cody, Mullen quiet, are other boys going to pop up? But Harry Shine got a run, didn't score. Cian Kenny in the other corner didn't score. So it's I still think Kilkenny need to strengthen their forwards. Maybe if they're going to win in All Ireland, they're only 1 or 2 forwards away from being a real threat in All Ireland, and they got to the last 2 finals, and it's just, I think that's the thing that might get them over the line. But yeah, they're just still looking, it seems, anyway, and that's probably a few more questions than answers for Derek Ling leaving. Going forward for Clare point of view, we mentioned Keith Smith. I thought he didn't have a great game below in Wexford, but was much better here and was a bit of a target man inside. Scored 2 points and set up a few other scores as well. Yeah, so Conor Lean as well went off injured at half time. He'd be marking Adrian Mullen and seemed to have been doing a real good job there. And I'm sure Lohan would have liked to have given him more time on him, and because he's a guy who's impressed during the league and put his hand up, especially Clare. In the backs needed to find another back or two. Just worried about Adam Hogan. Went off, looked serious enough injury. Hopefully he just rolled his ankle, but Clare took no chances anyway. Took him off straight away because he would be a huge loss. But overall, Clare with players missing and have done quite well in the league. And didn't, to be honest, when I saw the players were going to be without for the league campaign, I didn't expect that they'd be. I was hoping that they'd manage to stay up in 1A for next year, all right, but didn't think they'd be right up to the top of the table. So I'm sure Lohan is delighted.
And you're delighted as well, Ruairi, as well, being a 6-month Bridgeman. Kieran, just coming over to you as well, just in terms of this Clare performance, one guy that has really stood out, and I mean, he's continued his form from last year, is David Fitzgerald. I mean, this move to wing forward has really invigorated him here. His ability, we knew from his run game last year to hit points, but I mean, he's scoring so heavy here from open play. I mean, the way he's going at the moment here, Kieran, dare I say, hurler of the year candidate if this form continues.
Yeah, to be fair, like every game, he's probably scored 4 or 5 points every game he's played this year. And up there with Adrian Mullen, who surprisingly didn't score. No, David Fitzgerald has been really impressive. I say just the type of guy who's really hard to mark, and if he gets to run up on you, you're not going to stop him. A big guy. One of the points there I saw where he took a long puck out, won it clean, turned, strides a few yards and puts it over, at ease. So really tough player to mark. Yeah, the Clare have been impressive. I just wonder about Ed McCarthy. He's probably struggling a little bit for form in open play. You probably struggle to see, will he be there come the championship? Obviously, he's a good free taker. We've been struggling on frees a bit more, isn't he, the last kind of weeks? I think for Kilkenny, they probably were a little bit experimental too. Paddy Deegan and Cian Kenny out of position. For me, Paddy Deegan's a back. Probably centre back for his best position. Cian Kenny, you're probably around midfield. I think Cody's form isn't the best. You mentioned it there. Like I think for a couple of games now, he hasn't been shooting the lights out by any means. And I suppose it's a point you made. If Mullen and Cody are kept quiet, where do the scores come from? Like we know, the likes of Mossy Keown on his day can put up a big score and he's a goal threat. But I suppose, and we've talked about this in the past as well, and with Billy Ryan probably in the same category, is consistency. They're just not doing it week in, week out. So from that point of view, is that why Ling is experimenting with the likes of Cian Kenny and Paddy Deegan? I suppose time will tell. Donnelly coming in getting 3 points, I suppose, is the highlight for them coming off the bench. But just wondering now, Rory, is that it? Is that too hoodoo over? You can beat Kilkenny now if it comes to an Ireland semi-final next year.
Well, yeah, hopefully we'll avoid them in that Ireland semi-final next year. One thing, Paddy Deegan first half was quite effective. I thought he was coming back and on breaking ball, and he can pick a score from distance as well. For about 15-20 minutes before half time, Kilkenny destroyed Clare on breaking ball. Clare were forced to go long and puckouts, and Kilkenny they're just so good at being the first man to that break, and it's something that I suppose Lohan will be working on going forward, because you meet them in Croke Park, and if they're winning breaking ball on you, and the likes of TJ and these lads getting chances to finish off moves, Mullen, Cody in Croke Park, if they're winning breaking ball, it's very hard to beat them. And they, for 15 minutes, they just destroyed Clare in it. Interesting enough, Richie Reid is centre back, and I know RT highlighted this, but he really struggled with David Reedy's movement in the first half. Clare were able to drag him all over the place, and it was interesting that he was whipped at half time. Again, another position we spoke about, maybe Cork having question marks at 3, but Kilkenny having question marks at 6. Maybe at the end of the league, rather than having a settled centre back going into championship. I suppose it's just another thing that Derek Ling, I think, has to worry about. They're far from kind of settled. As you said, putting Paddy Deegan up in the forwards, he obviously knows he has to change things from last year, but he's not getting an answer so far anyway from some of these changes he's made.
Is Tom Phelan injured? Because he hasn't featured this year.
Yeah, he must be. He must be. He hadn't featured, didn't come off the bench.
No.
They subs come in, Garrod Dunn, Timmy Clifford, and they're kind of lads, new names for me. So yeah, interesting that I'm sure if he was there, they'd have been looking to use him, because this was a pretty strong Kilkenny team. We had picked it out from the start. Lawler, Butler, Blanchfield, Reid, Mikey Carey. This was 12 of the starting championship team. Now, in saying that, they could easily have won the game, and we saw the big goalmouth scramble at the end where 2 or 3 Clare players were hit with the ball as opposed to just point blank shots. and one of them went in, Kilkenny won by a point, and then you're talking about how they went up to Ennis and got a great away win. It was that close, like, so I wouldn't be sounding alarm bells yet. The only alarm really is that there's a certain key positions that, they don't seem to be nailed down yet.
Yeah, absolutely. But I suppose Mikey Carey's cameo in the second half at half back certainly steadied the ship a little bit for Kilkenny. I know there was a few cameos shown on RT Sports on Sunday night. But look, I think Derek Ling was fairly unanimous here. The effort's there, but obviously there is scope for improvement. And as you say, Kilkenny don't do panic, did it this time of year? So expect them to be firing all guns blazing with Leinster Hurling Championship fast approaching. I suppose, guys, into 1B, Saturday night RT televised game in Super Valley Park O'Keefe was the meeting of old rivals Limerick and Tipperary. Limerick winning by a point here. Impressive second half, but I suppose, Kieran, these Tipperary goals certainly focused the mind of John Clyde and management, really.
Yeah, I think Tipperary scored the last 1-1 of the play, so I think that totally took a glass off the scoreline, and I don't think the 1 point win was a fair reflection. Definitely the second half, I think Limerick were definitely the dominant team, but like 3 goals, I suppose. I think Dublin probably showed signs of running at Limerick and creating problems at the back as well when they played them a few weeks ago. I suppose maybe there's issues there. Yeah, look, I suppose there wasn't too much between the two teams first half. But it's like, Tip get a score or get a goal and Limerick up to the field and knock off 3 or 4 points in a row at ease. And, it's great to see Kieran, looking like he's back to himself. Really thought he had a very good match. Getting Gillan back in the field as well. Donegal Dawley definitely held his own. I think he struggled earlier on, but, coming away with 3 points. Marking Mikey Breen, you might be marking him, that's no mean feat. And I think one of the points where he knocked it on ahead of himself and backed himself with the pace to get there. And, I suppose he's definitely going to keep Seamus Flanagan on his toes or, come championship. And I suppose the one thing that'll please Kylie is, bringing on 4 subs and all 4 subs score, getting a point apiece, in a short window in the last 9 or 10 minutes. I suppose for Tipperary, the Seamus Kennedy injury, we hope it's not too serious. And, I think he will be a huge loss from this year. I think the last few weeks I've been talking about Tipperary and I have been impressed with them. But, if you strip it all back and you're looking at it, I kind of question, do they have the depth? Do they have, once we hit round robin and you're playing, your 4 games in a short window, have they the panel to compete? And I suppose that's a question mark for me at the minute. They can probably put a very strong 15 on the field. But have they, with injuries and all these things are going to happen in a round robin series, have they the players to come in and keep that keep them at the same level they're at the minute? I'm kind of struggling to think they do. I suppose Noel McGrath being the one noted player who didn't, come on, but they were pretty close to full strength. Maybe even the McGrath and Barrett, and I suppose you'd wonder. You're looking at the bench Saturday night, and you're kind of, is there anyone there that can come in and change the game? And, at the minute, they are going well and probably will fancy themselves to get to a league semi-final, but possibly you could worry about them a little bit coming round robin.
Yeah, and I suppose that squad depth is going to be really utilised now because they have the bye week round 1 of the Munster Senior Hurling Championship this year, so they'll be kind of going in, pretty much consecutively now. I know that was an issue for them clearly last year, particularly against Waterford in the last round of the Munster Championship. I suppose, Ruairi, get you in here in terms of Limerick. I suppose Cian Lynch's performance, pretty impressive. Gillan comes back in with 8 points, O'Dowd with 3, 12 different scores. Anything else really standing out for you in this Limerick performance?
Yeah, I suppose the Cathal O'Neill experiment at centre-back was continued, and I suppose we saw both sides of it. He's a real attacking centre-back and, drives forward and can take a score from distance, as we saw both against Dublin. And, maybe didn't get on the score sheet this time, but drove forward, hit quality ball in, set up chances. But I just felt if you compare him to Hannon, he was playing a good bit more forward. Hannon sits a good bit and does comes off the shoulder maybe to join the play, whereas O'Neill was more kind of trying to start launch attacks on his own. And I'd say something that maybe Kylie and Connacht will kind of show him tape and just bring him back a few, maybe 10 yards, sitting a bit more deeper in front. That might stop kind of the goals where Tipperary just kind of came straight through and Limerick seemed to lack that cover. So yeah, look, it is a real interesting move, and I presume what they're looking at is his striking ability, like he off left to right, the quality of ball he can give to the forward line coming at 6, but he just probably has to learn a bit more of the defensive part of it yet. He has been a forward like since under 14s, under 13s. Underage, we experimented once with him centre back, but we couldn't afford to play him there. He was too precious for us up front. You could see maybe like with a bit of work, he definitely has a lot of qualities. Just I think position and stuff. Obviously that has to come. You're not going to automatically go in there and know all the ins and outs of position. And just definitely he'll have to sit a small bit deeper anyway for a start.
He was very wasteful too, though, isn't he?
Yeah, and it's something as well like that. I think coming off the Dublin game. Yeah, I think that it can often happen for a half-back where one day they go out and score 3 or 4 points from range, and probably not percentage shots, and then suddenly when maybe it's not on the next day, kind of conditions like we're damp and wet below, and guys are still going for shots. Looking at Clare, our half-back line have a habit of doing that. When you see the threats that both Clare and Limerick have inside, like you're better off like feeding Galan if you can at all than taking a shot from maybe 80, 90 yards. So yeah, it's definitely something as well that I'm sure will be pointed out to him when they're looking back over his performance.
I don't even think it was shots though. Like there was a couple of times where he won possession, made a run out, and just maybe a stick pass intended to a player and it didn't get there, and there were 2 or 3 occasions I could pick out. And I suppose it's just, look, he's young and it's obviously all going to be new to him, but it's definitely a part of it. When Declan Hannon gets the ball, he doesn't give it away, and that's a part of his game he's going to have to work on to be successful there.
Yeah, but you can see a lot of similarities between the two of them. Like they're both very good to come off and drive forward off shoulder. Hannon is a lot cuter in the position, and like as we know, he's the reason why he's been the 6 for Limerick for a long time. And you can see how O'Neill might work there, but as you said, like especially in your own half, you can't afford to be careless with the ball at any stage because he will be punished. And even whether it's first minute or last minute, we saw with Tipperary, like they'll punish us, especially if there's a goal chance in the offing.
No, I thought it was an interesting fixture really, guys, here, and I thought a stat from the Irish Examiner report was fairly telling. Under John Kiley's tenure as Limerick manager, Tip have never won a second half, which I thought was a pretty intriguing, and that's 13 fixtures here, so which is pretty amazing, really, to be honest with you. But I suppose
Tip, like plus 76 points over all the games in the second half, I think.
Seeing that, Colin Keys as well threw out great stats straight after the match as well. So I mean, look, I think to be fair, it's you'd wonder what Tipperary, look, they're going toe to toe with Limerick. First half is very competitive, but you could see that half back line dominating that third quarter, and as you said, that 1-1 burst is probably diluting the scoreline a little bit for Tipperary. But I suppose, look, Jason Ford 1-7, Gerard O'Connor's 3 points. Patrick Bonner came in, provided a bit of an impact off the bench. So I suppose the injury to Seamus Kennedy is probably the downer here, but they'll travel up to Belfast hoping for a big result and hoping that Limerick maybe do Tipperary a favour when they travel to Salt Hill. Obviously, that game has been rescheduled from the Gaelic grounds. And I mean, I was at the game between Galway and Dublin, and poor Johnny Murphy was in the limelight here. Again, there was a little bit of aggro, I suppose, during the game. Not much, but like 4 red cards, 2 straight reds, 11 yellow cards here. I mean, he was tail of the tape. And I mean, Dublin, after a bright start here, Ruairi, Galway managed to get the job done with 12 players.
Yeah, and we've been asking questions where are Dublin since the start of this league, but they actually showed a good sign of improvement. This was their best performance to date, but the minute a gap opened, there was no real resilience there, and they were against 14 men here at one stage, and I know they had their own man sent off, but like for a while they were up against 14, and you'd be kind of thinking, what a silly thing to do from Hayes, like who was on a yellow, to like leave the Hurling in for a blatant yellow card, because they need whatever advantage you can get, especially away from home against Galway. And considering how poorly Dublin have been going in the league, it would have been a massive boost to them, even to just take Galway right down to the wire. But the fact that it petered out at a 10-point defeat, a chance for Dublin to really show signs of improvement and to finish the second half the way they did, is going to be really disappointing again for Donoghue. It's worrying signs for Dublin, and there's a real chance here as well that Westmeath could pick them off in the last round. You'd wonder, we're looking at Waterford in 1A as a team that are having a desperate league campaign, although Davy might point otherwise, but it seems to be Dublin in 1B.
Yeah, Kieran, get you in there. I mean, Donald Burke back playing with Dublin again, 1-9. O'Sullivan was prominent, I thought, particularly first half, caused Jack Grealish a bit of problems here, picked up the yellow card early, and then 40 minutes, fortunately for Grealish, he got the second, 3 points from O'Sullivan. So, 112 there, but look, to be perfectly fair, Dublin need a little bit more from other players here, particularly in that middle third and forward line.
Yeah, and they only scored 7 points to play in the whole game with 5 scores, Now, Kieran O'Sullivan is probably, to date in the league, has been their farm forward, I think. He has been getting them, 3 or 4 points every day he's played. And Donald Burke, obviously, is going to take a while to get back up to speed, but, scoring 1-9, but 1-8 of them are from place ball, so, actually only getting the point from play. Regarding the cards, I don't think Conor Whelan can have any complaint. He struck with the hurling. That's it's a red card. I didn't see Dahi Burke's one. Obviously, there was Johnny Murphy's getting a bit of stick in the last couple of days, but he conferred with the linesman, and I presume a lot of this was the linesman decision. So the 2 red cards there probably Grealish, as you said, he left the hurling. And when you're on a yellow, you can't do something stupid like that, and probably maybe overall it might have been a harsh red, but when you're on the yellow, that's the risk you take. I can see Shefflin's point. Refereeing this time of year possibly isn't the best anyway, but definitely for the likes of Conor Whelan, I could see he's completely in the wrong, and Shefflin probably talking after the game, probably talking frustrated probably in a way, but I think when they look back at it, they'll realise I don't think it's a red card they're going to appeal. I
don't think either, to be perfectly honest. They're going to be missing the Limerick game on Saturday, but I think Conor Whelan had a frustrating game. He was being well shackled inside. I think it was just frustration built up, I'm afraid. I think he realised his fate pretty quickly after doing it. And Dahi Burke definitely was straight in front of it, ball had gone, he basically followed through. Now, in other championship games, would that be seen as a yellow card? So I think that's maybe the one that Henry Shefflin maybe had a grievance with, but I don't really agree with Shefflin complaining about match officials this time of year, really. I think that can come back to bite you when you need it most in terms of championship. I thought it was a very flat performance here from Galway from start to finish. Conor Cooney was magnificent on the frees, 10 frees from the 11. Monaghan had a prominent game, 4 points, and Joseph Cooney as well. You take those guys there. I think a question was asked in terms of Jonathan Dibb from Ardrahan. He's still in New York, but he was confirmed that he's travelling back to Galway in the next few weeks. So that's a guy here that could maybe provide a little bit more physicality in that half forward line, because they did struggle at times, particularly in that second quarter. Dublin did clean up in that half back line, but I think Michael O'Donoghue basically said it best. It was very disappointing in terms of that final quarter, 10 points to 1. Where do you go? I think from Dublin, that's a poor end to the game after being in it for 40 minutes. I think as you said, Kieran, it was just the resiliency. They were asked a question, no response really happened here, and you're heading into Leinster Championship here where likes of Wexford, Kilkenny's are going to basically latch onto that all day long, and it was a great win for Westmeath. I think we'd tipped them to win this one, and they won very comfortably, to be perfectly honest. Again, the usual suspects for Westmeath really delivered. Cathal Gunning had 7 points for Antrim, but there were no match for Westmeath here, and Dublin, I think, have to be on high alert here, Ruairi, going into this final game in 1B.
Just from a Dublin point of view as well, like Ronan Hayes, who showed a lot of promise a couple of years ago, and he's not really. There's a couple of seasons in a row now where he's kind of flattered to deceive, and should really be, for the ability he has shown, delivering a bit more in the forward line. Danny Sutcliffe, who was really good against Limerick, had a quieter game here and was kind of well marshalled. And with the likes of Chris Crummy back in, still the only lad they're really missing is Owen O'Donnell. This is very close to a championship team, and the fact they have to go down to Salt Hill in the championship as well, I'm sure Donoghue wanted them, to really. Because they've kind of been a bogey team for Galway going back maybe 10-15 years now. Dublin have caught them on numerous occasions in the Leinster Championship, and they really would want to put the Frighteners on Galway again. And it looks, for a long time that they might do that, but just the way they faded out, disappointing. Just wondering back to the red cards, because the fact that the TG Carr, didn't have the Dahi Burke one fully on camera, they kind of missed it, as you said, it was late. If Galway had their own footage maybe, and it shows that there wasn't really a hurley used, and that might be the only one that might get rescinded, but there's no way the Conor Whelan one was going to get rescinded. Jack Grealish, I thought, was kind of unlucky as well, because it looked like the second player was coming in at the same time, and it was hard to be 100% who actually made the final contact. First yellow, okay, fair enough, but the second one, it was kind of two Galway players kind of sandwiched him once the Dublin forward going through. Could have been Mannion coming across. Overall, yeah, it's going to be hard to get either of them rescinded unless Galway have clear footage that the Dahi Burke one wasn't as sinister as the ref and linesman thought it was.
Yeah, and I think the fact that it was 11 yellow cards during the whole contest as well, I think crowd around me were getting very, very frustrated. The ebb and flow of the game was kind of killed, particularly in that first half, particularly into the third quarter. But I suppose that's what it was.
It's the contrast in the refereeing. It's the lack of consistency. Like, you go to the Wexford Waterford game, there was one yellow card shown. And there was a couple of incidents in that game that possibly, Billy Nolan pulled on Cathal Dunbar's helmet, pulling back after a puck-ups. Like Jack O'Connor got the line for that only a couple of weeks ago. So there's things that, are being blown in one game, aren't being blown in the other. And I suppose that's the most, is week on week, depending on what referee you have, you're going to face a different set of rules, or, different, I suppose, the levels of strictness, I suppose, really, and how they adapt the rules. But that's the frustrating part, is week on week, different referees, it's a different game, and how they ref it. And I think the refereeing scenario, it's getting worse. I think year on year, it's actually getting worse. Game is getting faster, which probably doesn't help it. But I don't know. I think we're in serious bother here with referees.
Yeah, even like within a game, James Owens, what were freezing in the first half weren't freezing in the second half. Kind of, I think once a referee lets one tackle go, that's kind of a 50-50 or whatever, then suddenly the ones that become 60-40 kind of lets go, because he thinks, if I blow this one, I'm going to have the home crowd onto me because I didn't give the last one. And suddenly things can kind of get out of hand. And watching the Clare game, I actually said, with 5 minutes ago, if there's going to be a row here and one broke out kind of near the end, it could have, because you could just feel players getting frustrated, and it can happen. And sometimes when you see these rows break out, it's often a frustration with the referee that's taken out, because you haven't got 2 or 3 frees and you take it out on the player nearest you, and suddenly there's a bit of a melee or whatever. So yeah, it's sometimes within games as well, that the consistency from half to half, or from the first 5 minutes to the last 5 minutes, what is a free earlier in a game doesn't seem to be one later, and vice versa.
I suppose, guys, quickly into 2A, good weekend for Carlow. Securing kind of promotion to 1B 2025 with a very impressive win over Down, who had their moments in the third quarter. But I suppose here, Kieran, John and Chris Nolan really come into the party with 8 points between them. I mean, Marty Kavanagh as well. So I think all in all, a very good league performance for Carlow continues.
Yeah, I think Carlow were holding the better team overall the first half, going in 6 points up at half time. And 2 quick goals by Dahi Sands around the 50-minute mark, had Down right back in the game. But I suppose it was Carlow's response again. As you mentioned, the 2 boys, Chris Nolan and John, with the 8 points from play. Jake Doyle getting a goal as well on the hour mark, just kind of putting a bit more daylight between them. I think Carlow have had I suppose a very, very good league campaign. I suppose it's no surprise really. I suppose they finished last year. They kind of came with a late run last year, but they've carried it on into this year, and they have been impressive. And for themselves, I suppose it would be a travesty if they don't win 2A at this stage, because they have been definitely the team of the league in 2A. I
suppose Ruairi can get you in here as well. Big shout out to Kildare. They started the year poorly enough, but they are, under Brian Dowling, really building up a bit of momentum here, being a credible draw on Down, and now coming to Hawkfield to secure a very good win over Kerry. I suppose, look, Kerry can probably claim under strength, but I thought Kildare were full value for this win.
Yeah, and we alluded to this last week, that Kildare possibly got things wrong last year by going too gung-ho in the league. And we should remember, like, a lot of these teams don't have the squads of the Lee McCarthy teams where they can chop and change players week in, week out. So when you go gung-ho, you're more or less keeping the same bunch of players in the pitch. And I think this year maybe they've thought we'll ease into it and kind of build up slowly. That seems to be the case anyway, looking from afar. And they seem to be getting stronger and stronger as the league continues. And this was their best performance to date, because Kerry were coming off a win over Meath and with a very good second half. And with Conway back in, Shane Conway back in as well, like, there was probably a bit of momentum about Kerry, but Kildare, they were full value for the win, seem to be getting stronger. And then in their last round now, they have Carlow, who have already qualified. So, and also Carlow as well, the only worry for them is, like, they lost John Michael Nolan, and also lost Conor Lawler and James Doyle through injuries. there's 3 big players as well that are coming off and definitely won't be like risked against Kildare. So Kildare might be eyeing this. It's a home game on Friday night actually for Kildare, and it's one that they might be trying to again finish the league with 3 wins on the bounce, and are then still within an outside chance of a semi-final spot then. In fact, if they win, they probably will be playing Laois in that semi-final. So all to play for Kildare, and probably timing things a bit better this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, in fairness, Coulter came back in from a lengthy injury absence. He replaced Sheridan, who's their chief point scorer, until he got injured. I mean, Boren, Burke and Coulter contributed 15 points in total. I suppose Kerry did struggle for scores in attack, 1-8 from play. I suppose Stephen Malumphey was probably keen to stress in terms of the 11 unavailable players, and that he will be bringing them back. It looks like a key fixture for them here, Kieran, against Laois. I mean, they're not out of the woods in terms of relegation if Meath were to get something out of Down in the last game.
Yeah, I think we all thought last week when Kerry got the result that maybe they're back. I suppose Loughrea was back in the field, and I think I was one that I thought they would have enough this week to beat Kildare. But I suppose from their point of view, it's been a very, very disappointing league so far. I think they would have had high hopes. The last couple of years they've been really close to the top without winning any silverware, but I think they're struggling this year early on, and kudos to Kildare. I think fair play. I think they did struggle early on as well, but they're starting to turn a bit of get a bit of form now, and what I mean, we Carlow potentially resting a few players on Friday night with a short turnaround that maybe Kildare concedes the opportunity, but I think for Kerry it's been really disappointing, and Kerry would have been away to Laois this weekend. Very hard to see them get a result in that last game either, because Laois were kind of they were put up a huge score on Meath, scoring 4-26 and 11 different scores and 3-14 from their full forward line. So it's a huge score to put up. I think Meath have had one or two good performances themselves, but I think it's very hard to see Meath getting a result off Laois. Very hard to see Kerry getting results. But I say as well for Meath playing Down. I think Down have had a very good league as well. I suppose a big improvement on last year, and you would expect Down to have one up on them there on the last game.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, we can go to the 2-8 predictions really. Yeah, Kildare. I'm fancying Kildare on this one. This was very impressed by their performance, particularly against Kerry, particularly their third quarter performance. For me, I think Carlow will be under strength, and looking one eye at the league final. Obviously, they've achieved 1B promotion. So for me, I think Kildare will probably get a win, and that'll be a nice little boost for Brian Downing here as well, with the management staff in charge. Laois Kerry, I'm going to go Laois. I don't see Bill Maher and Laois letting up here. Too much momentum has been created after that Meath win to then dismantle it. So I think Kerry are going to be really looking over their shoulder here and seeing what happens in Down versus Meath, because heaven forbid here if Meath were to get a result here for Kerry will be going down. So I think Down Meath game could be the intriguing one here. I don't think there's much between these sides. I think maybe a draw here, and if that's the case, then I think Kerry might be down. I don't know, Ruairi, any 2-8 predictions here?
Yeah, I go with everything you said there. I think Kildare, I think at home to Carlow, I think Carlow will have one eye on a league final, and Kildare can make hay here and get that win that puts them in the semi-final. I think Laois will good to win as well, and you'd have to fancy Down at home to Meath. The way Meath were going to find it hard to pick themselves up again. And in fairness to Down, they've been pretty consistent in their games. Even there, I know they conceded a big score against Carlow, but they actually, themselves, they scored 2-18. Down in Dr. Cullen Park, it's still a big total to put up against the best team in the division. So, you'd have to fancy Down to get that win at home to Meath as well. So you're looking at 3 home wins.
Yeah, no, they gave as good as they got Down, to be fair to them, particularly that opening period. They were under the cosh for long periods, but with Sands in the side, the goals are there. So look, that'll be an intriguing one. I think
definitely at home. I think definitely home Down. They've been really impressive up there, and for me, it's a very tough place to go and get a result. So for me, I think Down have been hugely improved on last year's league form, and I expect Down to take that. And I suppose it depends on what Carlow team will take to the field, but you'd expect a few changes haven't been already, topping the table, and it could be an opportunity for Kildare to strike. And on the last game, Laois Kerry, I think Laois will be very disappointed with their result against Carlow, and I suppose the manner they lost, and I suppose they'll want to cement their place in that semi-final, and I can't see Kerry getting the results. We were buoyed a little bit last weekend with Kerry's, getting the win last week, but I think the problems aren't over there yet, and it could be a long season from at this stage. But I think definitely you'd have to pick Laois over Kerry.
Maybe get a few quick fire predictions from you guys. 1A, Waterford entertain Kilkenny, Clare travelling to Tullamore, and Wexford versus Cork. Looks like quite a juicy one in 1A. I suppose, Kieran, do you want to kick off with a few predictions here?
Yeah, Waterford, Kilkenny. I could see a Kilkenny win here. I think Kilkenny will probably be disappointed, obviously losing last weekend. As you said earlier, they don't panic, but, I think Waterford don't have anything to play for, really. So it might be an opportunity if there's some of these players David keeps talking about come back, that he'll throw them in and get a bit of game time into them. But Kilkenny played Waterford earlier on before the league in a challenge game and put up a big score on them. I think scored 4 or 5 goals on them. So I don't see any other result. It's probably a little bit of a dead rubber in ways, but I think Kilkenny is team on top. It's a local derby, and Waterford at home, like they're 0 from 2 in their new stadium there at the minute. So they'll want to change that, but I can't see it. I think Kilkenny for me. Offaly versus Clare. Clare make the journey to Tullamore. I still think Clare win. Offaly, we've applauded them on some of their performances earlier in the league, and they were good. Big drop against Cork. I expect they'll bring more intensity to this game. They'll try and finish at some bit of a high performance wise, but I think it's hard to see past Clare. The last game, Wexford Cork. I suppose both teams have 1A hurling secure for next year, but I suppose you're playing for a place in the semi-final. I think Cork will probably come into this game thinking, it's 2 points secured, but Wexford Park's a hard place to come. I think if Wexford, turn this into a dogfight, get in Cork's face, don't let them get a run on you, and hit them hard, tackle hard. It'll require a huge work rate and a huge intensity. But I think Wexford have shown that in a couple of games this year so far. I think if you if you get in their face, Cork won't like it. Cork don't like contact; they like to run at you. So I think if you stop them, it'll get you a lot of the way there. I suppose Wexford have been playing a brand where they're getting the hurling down into the 2 corners. Keane Byrne and Shemmy Casey will be making hay, I suppose, in the last couple of games, and I suppose I expect that to continue. But I think, look, Cork probably on paper are a better team. I suppose Wexford they haven't given up the fight yet, and I'm just gonna it could be a draw actually is what I'd probably be hitting it, but I'm just gonna give it to Wexford the narrowest of wins just because they've nothing to lose here. They're in bonus territory. They're happy. They're 1A hurling next year. They're not going to lie down at home, especially to Cork, and they're 2 different teams in how they play. Just going a slight nod to Wexford.
Cool. Ruairi, your predictions on 1A?
Yeah, I think, look, there's a lot of permutations, but the straightforward one is Clare beat Offaly, they win 1A. And then you got 3 teams fighting for 1 spot. Probably go here. Kilkenny probably get the win with Waterford. Just based Waterford have a lot to find coming off last weekend. So if Kilkenny win that could be them through, because Wexford then will have to beat Cork by 2 points more than Kilkenny will win by. So it would be a tall order for Wexford. So if Kilkenny win by 5 points, Wexford have to win by 7 or 8 points. I think it could be 8 just to make sure. So it's going to come down to score difference between those 2 teams. I fancy maybe Wexford to get their 4th draw as a campaign. Maybe all their games have been tight, and it would be unprecedented to get four draws out of 5 games. But it's another one that kind of it's going to be so close, and that a draw could be could be worth putting a few quid in the draw there again.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't say Wexford aren't battle hardened this year anyway with all the close encounters that they've had anyway. So, no, I kind of go along with you there. I think Kilkenny over Waterford, Clare I think over Offaly. If Johnny Kelly is what he's saying, he's going to give squad players a bit of a run out. I think the more dangerous thing for Johnny Kelly is if Clare bring the squad out as well, because they'll have a point to prove. So, and then Wexford, Cork, not maybe a draw there. 1B, guys, Corrigan Park Antrim versus Tipperary. Tipperary obviously looking at maybe a 30-point deficit here. Do we see Antrim responding here after last weekend here, Ruairi?
Antrim, they're stronger at Corrigan Park than away from home, but this hasn't been a good league campaign for them really, and had a great chance to beat Dublin, get 2 points aboard there, and there's a danger here that Tipperary team chasing a score will come up goal hungry, and it could be a big defeat for Antrim. So hard for me. It's hard to see anything but a big defeat for Antrim in this game. You hope not, but yeah, when Tipperary are goal hungry, they can put up a big score. And they have done so in the league already. They put up big scores, and some of the teams in the group, even like let's say scoring 3 goals against Limerick, so they could, you wouldn't be surprised if they put 5-6 on Antrim. But there's a lot of pride in Antrim hurling, and they will not want to, go down easy up there. Corrigan Park has been a stronghold, but yeah, it's hard to see anything but a large dip win there.
Yeah, do you go the same way here, Kieran?
Yeah, I think Antrim are struggling all this year early on, so what's the 30 points? I wouldn't be surprised if Tip hit that. I think plus bouncing back off a defeat as well. There's going to be an extra kick in Tipperary. Yeah, it's going to be 25, 30 point margin, I think.
The intrigue, yeah, I know Galway Limerick there, obviously, but Dublin Westmeath looks very fascinating for me here, guys, just in terms of form line for Dublin heading into a Leinster Hurling Championship here. I think it's a key game, Rory, you flagged it here, but like Westmeath coming in with a good run of form here. Who do you fancy in this game?
Yeah, I fancy Westmeath. Interestingly enough, the last day, Westmeath looked at Antrim and probably thought if we're anywhere close with a stronger bench, they had Davy Glennon coming in, also you had Clark coming in, and they were bringing on serious subs and made a big difference. I think they got 1-6 off the bench, which is huge, in a tight game. So I think Westmeath, and it'll be a big one for Westmeath to get Dublin scalp. Dublin have traditionally, kind of been, over the last 20 years, they'd have been comfortably beating Westmeath. But now, Westmeath can see that they're the team, probably with the better form, and it's a great chance for them to get Dublin scalp going into John McDonough campaign. So yeah, I'm going to go with Westmeath actually here.
Yeah, Kieran, what do you think on this one?
Yeah, I suppose it's probably the hardest game to call of the weekend for me. Dublin went up to Antrim, and bar a late mistake Antrim are struggling, but they had to win a beating of Dublin that day, bar the Kieran the goalkeeper for Antrim. Anyway, he's the blunder at the end to win for Dublin. Westmeath have had a good campaign. They've had good performances against Limerick and Tipperary. Obviously getting the win against Antrim last week. Killian Doyle as well came back on. He was part of that. One of the players to come off the bench scoring 2 points. I don't think there's going to be a whole opportunity to teams. Maybe a draw could be the bet in this one, but I'm just going to give it to Dublin and in parallel as well. The players that have come back in are going to get an extra game under their belts. Since likes of Donald Burke, you might see scoring a little bit more from play. Cian O'Sullivan has been probably their best player this year to date. It's going to continue his scoring spree, and I'm just going to give it to Dublin, but I wouldn't be surprised if they finish in a draw.
Yeah. And the last one, I have mentioned Galway Limerick here, but it is Limerick's home game in Gaelic grounds, but has been moved to Pearse Stadium, Salt Hill. Galway without probably Daithí Burke and Conor Whelan facing a Limerick team looking to go 5-5. I suppose, Rory, looks a tasty fixture on paper here.
It does, yeah. And when Galway and Limerick meet in the league in particular, they're usually, very good games. With Galway coming down to the Gaelic grounds and winning there recently in the league. And Salt Hill is a hard place to go, getting away win, as we know. But yeah, look, as you said there, Daithí Burke is the main man in the Galway backline. Conor Whelan as well, the main goal threat at the other end. They are two huge men to be without. And look, it probably is a blessing in disguise for Cooney or for Henry Shefflin, because guys have to step up and fill those roles and show a bit of leadership without those two. And he'll learn a lot about who are his next leaders, especially with Limerick coming to town. So again, from a spectator point of view here, you're hoping that it'll be a humdinger of a game and Galway will really shove it up to Limerick here. that it'll be a game that'll be right in the balance coming down the stretch, because Galway here, a win for Galway will put them through on score difference, unless Tipperary can, beat Galway's total by something like 30 points. So, it's Galway will be eyeing at a win, will put them through if they want at the very least they'll want to finish with a big performance.
Yeah, who do you fancy?
Limerick.
Okay, Kieran, over to you. Limerick Galway, who do you fancy here?
Yeah, I think Limerick as well. Just as Ruairi said, like Dai Burke and Conor Whelan, like probably the two main. If you were to pick the first two teams or names in the team sheet every week, they'd be the first two guys on it. We've said it over the years, like the Galway forward line doesn't tick unless Conor Whelan is there. I think he's a hugely important player for him. Pearse Stadium probably will give him a slight advantage, although I don't think Galway play their best hurling in Pearse Stadium either. So I don't know, is that a complete advantage to him? But Limerick obviously don't mind going up there to play him there. Yeah, I think you just have to give it to Limerick. Hopefully we get to see maybe the likes of Declan Hannon or Sean Finn get on the bench maybe for the weekend and get some game time. I know they have taken part in full training, so it'd be great to see him back on the field. It'd be an opportunity for Shefflin to give younger players game time, but I just think Limerick there, probably they've been impressive without shooting the lights out. They've been impressive nearly in first, second gear. They will probably need to go up another gear against Galway. Galway, I suppose, might want to try and lay down a marker going into the championship, because a fair chance that these teams could meet again later in the year. But I just think Limerick are probably, they are, a grade above Galway in my eyes. I suppose, and the panel strength they have, like if someone isn't performing, they can bring on a player. Like you see 4 players coming on after getting scores is huge. So I think there won't be much in it, but I think Limerick will get the win just about.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be intriguing for Galway who does actually step up here. If Daithí Burke and Conor Whelan are out here, particularly in the forward line, who's going to be that focal point in that full forward line? I suppose Daithí Burke was playing wing back last weekend. There is that full back role to be filled here, so I wonder if Fintan Burke, Shane Burke here, maybe going back into the full back line mightn't be a bad idea. I think all aces are held by Limerick here, though. They have been impressive, particularly attacking wise. 26 points on a wet March day is really saying something, really, isn't it? So I think the bet has to go to Limerick, but I think this Galway challenge, I think there is a mood here in Galway that there is a big performance in this Galway team, given the adversity of the 12 players last weekend, and also it's a double header in Pearse Stadium with Dublin and Galway in the football immediately afterwards, so there will be a big crowd in Salt Hill. Dublin Westmeath, I'm gonna just edge it to Dublin here. I think their Leinster campaign rides on this. If they were to lose here, I think this is an awful setback for not just the senior team of Dublin, but I think the Dublin hurling programme in general. So I think this is a, save our season for Micheál O'Donoghue and the management here. I think they'll just edge it. And then Antrim Tipperary, I think could go with G. I'd hope that Antrim do provide a bit of a response here, but the signs haven't been good the last 2 games, have they, guys? And mean Tipperary know that there's a score target here to attain here. And I don't think they're going to be letting up for the full 70 minutes here. So, look, I think Tip by a heavy score. I suppose, guys, St. Patrick's Day, Croke Cup final, quick prediction. Kieran's College or St. Raphael's? What do you feel is going to win here, Rory?
Look, for me anyway, you'd have to go with the tradition of Kieran's, and not just the tradition, the performances so far as well. They have the experience of being there in Croke Park before on Ireland final day. And again, fair play to TJ Carr, who are showing this live on Saturday, and a huge occasion for Loughrea to be up there. St. Raphael's basically, picking from just the immediate area around Sarsfields and the likes of the clubs around Loughrea as well. So a real kind of local feel to their team. But look, they had a massive performance against Nina CBS, who were highly fancied in that semi-final. And you're just hoping like that they will at least delete that and a bit more if they're going to, beat Kieran's. And look, from my point of view, I'm just hoping that it is a close game and we get a humdinger of a final, because semi-final was great and it'll be to a wide audience now. It's on the main TG Carr channel. It's not kind of on the stream. So you're hoping that it'll be a good advert for secondary school hurling, because there's some serious talent there this year as well. We spoke with all the guys that are actually playing senior inter-county amongst the various teams that are in secondary schools hurling, which is kind of an unusual one. So this is kind of a unique year, and you're hoping for a big final, but it's hard to see past Kieran's.
Yeah, Kieran, do you support that view?
Yeah, I think it's been a very good competition to date. There's been some great games all along. Look, we've heard St. Raphael's, they're there on merit. They beat Athenry, and as well, I think in Nina last day. And any final is a game on the day. It's a 50-50 game, but I'm sure nerves are going to be a big part of that for St. Raphael's, and you're coming up against a team where this is their competition. Like, this is where they are this time of year every year, and they'll know what happens on the structure of the day, how it pans out, and just the powerhouse they are. I think you just have to, and the respect you have to give them. I think you have to tip Kieran's. They have been impressive to date, and I echoed Roy. Like, I hope it's a good game, because it hasn't been a very good competition to date, and you'd hate for it to bow out in the final and a one-sided game. But look, Raphael's have put it up to big teams and came out in the day. So Rory said there, TJ4, like, only for TJ4 we'd see no hurling. That's the way it has been, and to be fair to them, they're showing games where we've been waiting a long time for RT to show, and they're great advocates for hurling, to be fair.
No, hopefully it's an exciting final. Hopefully St. Raphael's go in with no pressure on them, because Kieran's College just the way they dismantled Ardscoil Reach, I thought, particularly in that first half in Bansha 2 weeks ago. I think the game tape here for St. Raphael's is how are they going to kind of prevent that ball inside the Hunt. McAvoy as well on frees as well. They can beat you in multiple ways. They've been very impressive, but hopefully St. Raphael's can be competitive here. But no, I think you have to go tradition here. It's a routine on March 16th, 17th, isn't it, for St. Kieran's, and their students heading up to Croke Park year in, year out. They'll start as warm favourites, but the hope here is St. Raphael's really do rattle them early. I suppose, guys, we leave it there. It's been a lengthy one tonight. I suppose next week we will focus in on round 5 of the Allianz Hurling League. We'll also look at the Croke Cup final, and we'll probably look ahead to the National Hurling League playoffs, particularly in Division 1 and also in 2A, obviously, as well. I suppose, guys, enjoy the long weekend, enjoy the matches, and we'll chat next week.
Thanks, Mark.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to this podcast episode. If you liked what you heard in this podcast, why not subscribe to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast on either Amazon, Spotify, YouTube or Twitter platforms. You can also follow me at Hawkeye Sidekick on Facebook and Twitter for the latest sporting opinions, articles and reports.